Hi Pete, so this is my analysis on the movie Blue Story, and I'll just start with the next page and the setting. So the time is relatively near to our time, and we see this through watching them or seeing that they have cell phones and some modern stuff that shows that it's close to our times. And then I've split the setting to a physical environment and then also a social environment. And when we see the physical environment, it's a poor neighborhood. The people living there don't have that many opportunities, so therefore they have few opportunities, which also, as a result of this, they go into these gangs and join them. And also they're revolved in gang culture, which makes these young people easily slip into it and holding on to it, because once you get in, it's very hard for you to go out again. We read, for example, the book before this one, where we hear about this story about the dad, how him going to prison was the solution for how he got out of the gang culture. And then the social environment. Then I also found the environment or the social environment as a very unhappy place. There's a lot of sadness going on, which makes the place itself unhappy, and it's filled with hatred, very unimportant and unreasonable hatred, just based on the postcode that you live in, for example, which is also the case here and also the case in right now in the UK. And there's also lack of understanding each other, which we see here, and also little empathy. And the lack of understanding is shown, or we see it in the movie when Marco, this guy, doesn't understand that what Timmy's friends did to him has nothing to do with him, and it was only the friends that did it, and therefore only their fault. But he kind of matched these two together and said, because they're your friend, then you're kind of on their side. And then there's also much depression in the movie, which we also see when the older brother of Marco commits suicide and takes those pills and dies. Yes. And then the next slide, if I can switch on to it. Worked. And I've broken the characterization onto these topics, where I wanted to show the outer characteristics and the inner character, also the character development that each character or main characters go through, and also who the main character of the whole movie is. So firstly we have Marco, and on the outside he looks like this and is around 16, is very tall compared to other students or people shown in the movie. And when it comes to the inner character of this guy, Marco, then he's very much unhappy and wants to present himself as tough. He also he has this urge to present himself as brave, which is why he joins his brother in the gang culture. Also, he's not caring, he's not worrying as much. He's just trying to live life as a gang member without having any consequences. Also, he has a great status, which is based upon his brother being so high in the hierarchy in the gang culture. Yes, and he's all, yeah. And then we have, if it wants to switch, it doesn't want to do that. Timmy, and he looks like an average English student. He looks like this, and at this picture is around 16, 17, something like that. And in the ending, where he joins the gang, then he's around 19, 18, something like that. And his inner character, he's very caring, he's loving, he's a person that you can trust. He's the kind of person that you can be friends with and very close friends with. He knows how to differ from good and bad or good and evil. And we have the second or the third person to analyze. There you go. Which is Leah, which is Timmy's girlfriend. On the other character, she looks like this. She's a very beautiful, or some would say that she's very beautiful, and she's also around the same age as Timmy and Marco. And her inner character, she's a very protective person, which is why when she sees Timmy being jumped, she joins in, even though that she knows that something could go very wrong with herself, and she could just have ran away or something like that. And she's a loving person also, which is why she's showing affection to Timmy. And then she was also a smart girl, I would say, because it doesn't seem like she lacks any knowledge in school, and also when it comes to gang or street smart, as some would say. Yes, we have Switcher, which is Marco's older brother, and he looks like this. He's around 26 years old, I would say, or maybe older. So that's his outer character, and then in the end of the movie, he's in a wheelchair. And his inner character, he's a very he has this urge to present himself as being brave, as being the one in charge, as being one that can do something that most people wouldn't do, as for example carrying a gun, or and he's very into this gang culture, and he's very passionate about it, and he takes it as if it was a job, I would say, because he always has his phone. It's always the most important thing, which is also the case when him and his brothers are watching a movie. He values the gang life much more than that, which is why he leaves the home and goes out and does his thing, and or does these crimes. And when we look at the character development for each person, every single one of them change in a way. For example, Marco starts off by being someone that doesn't want to get involved in gangs, and becomes one that is involved and takes great action, actually, which is also by the influence of his brother Switcher. And when we see at Timmy, he also has a development, which is he starts off by being a innocent schoolboy that doesn't want to get involved in any gangs or anything, and also his mom tries to hold him back from getting along with those friends from his old school, which is why he switches his school to go out of these gang cultures, and also carries these values of caring about people. For example, when the younger gang members are trying to rap or doing a music video, he was the one that talked them into doing it at the first time, and so he also develops from being someone who's innocent to being involved in gang life, and also wanting to have this urge to kill Marco because of what he did to Leah before, and also Leah doesn't develop as much. The only thing that develops is her relationship with Timmy. They become boyfriend and girlfriend, but she doesn't. She gets killed very early, which is why we don't see her develop. And also Switcher doesn't develop. He's the same person. He doesn't change his mind and anything. The only thing that changes is him becoming paralyzed in the rest of his body, and therefore used as a wheelchair. From that we can say that Marco and Timmy are the only, or not the only ones, are one of those that dynamic person, because they change throughout the story. And who's the main character? I wrote Matter, but that's not the case. I just wrote it to remember his name. But the main character of this movie is Timmy, because all the actions are revolved on him and are around him, and we have the most focus on his perspective as well. But Matter is the only one that survives at the end and he's also a dynamic person, because he starts off by being a person that is very involved in gang life and is very loyal and knows this hierarchy, but then ends up we see him teaching kids or younger people about his experience with gangs and why they shouldn't be in gangs, involved in them. Yes, so he also develops. He's also a dynamic person. The other ones are still people. Of this movie is the conflict between Marco and or this gang life, which also involves now in Marco against Timmy, which we see here, and it all starts when he gets jumped and Timmy's old friends break his arm, and the message that this movie gives or sends out is that gang life is very how can you say it, empty, in a way that there isn't any motives or an actual motive that is I would say important. For example, these guys are fighting about postcode, which shouldn't I would say which shouldn't be a conflict or something that should be discussed. It's kind of like saying you're born in this area and I'm born in this area, therefore we shouldn't be friends and we shouldn't talk and therefore we should try and kill each other. And also the message is that it isn't worth it. Both sides keep losing people and also themselves. For example, Timmy dies and Switcher kills himself, and all these negative stuff. And Matter is the only one, or Matter the person is the only one which escapes. To sum up, the message that the movie gives is that gang life isn't something that should be desired. It isn't something that should be done, and also fighting over postcodes, which is a problem in the UK, is something very stupid, I would say, because you neither choose where you live up or which kind of person you are, where you're going to grow up, and also if fighting over postcodes is so meaningless, which is shown in the movie, because it's just a place, you don't own it. Multiple times in the movie they say you don't own the postcodes, which one of the rebels in the gang culture says or points. It also shows that if you were to join these gangs, both sides are going to suffer. The opposing team or the opposing gang and also the gang that you're in, both of them are going to suffer, which is also shown here, where we see Leah being killed and Marcus' brother being stabbed in the back, and made him paralyzed and then end up killing himself. So yes.